Stay here, don't put out to me from the man that I've become.
Swadika. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome everyone to the webinar Gut Health and Feed Week from the Informa Markets. Informa Markets is developing the digital platform with the content that can share the knowledge and experience from the expert during this pandemic situation that we try to keep the livestock community engaged. Today, I'm Rose Chitanuwat. I'm going to be the moderator of the session today. For today's session, it is very well supported and sponsored by APC from USA. APC will bring the knowledge about the gut health and how to manage feed formulation into your pig for the better and optimum level of the pig production. So for the gut health solution, of course, the optimal interaction between gut microflora, intestinal immunity is very important to have the secret of the pig to have healthy gut. So today, I would like to start the webinar by introducing the topic here. So of course, the profit is very important for everyone's pig farmers, even a feed mill. So how to get pig to digest and eat as much as feed and give the better quality of meat and with the efficiency of the production. So APC is going to cover the topic on profit drivers, managing gut health and immunity to maximize profit in nursery piglets to achieve full value of pigs. So we have the speaker with us today. We have like 4 speakers, very well known and expert in the nutrition, technical, and also they know what they are talking about. So the first one is Mr. Ramesh Subramonian. He is the Director of Sales on Asia Pacific. He is going to brief you about what is APC. And the second session will be by Dr. Megan Edwards, Spray Dry Plasma as a tool to enhance immune development and gut health in young pig. And third speaker with us today, Dr. Yanbin Shen, the importance of immunity and gut health for African swine fever prevention and control, and dietary strategies improving immunity and gut health of pigs. And the last speaker with us, Dr. Joe Crenshaw. He will speak about African swine fever that how African swine fever virus is needed in feed to infect pig. So I would like to start the webinar today by introducing and invite Mr. Ramesh Subramonian. Mr. Ramesh is the Director of Sales Asia Pacific for APC. He is responsible for all business development activities throughout Asia Pacific. He has 23 years experience of business development and management experience in the feed business in Asia. So I would like to bring you in to know more about APC, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. We have some interesting topics, as Rose said, and some experienced speakers. But to start with, I would like to give an overview of what APC is about and our global business and what we do in Asia. APC is part of the Lauritsen Group, and it's a privately held company founded in 1975. So it's about 45 years in the business, the LGI, and we are headquartered in Iowa in US. The group has production facilities, over 60 production facilities, 2,400 employees. Our focus has been on value-added protein technology. And our expertise, or what we are unique as, is in terms of extraction and fractionation of proteins from complex biological fuels, and also how to scale it up. So we are in the business of value-added proteins and lipids. If you look at the promoters themselves, started the business over 100 years back. So they started with the creamery, and then subsequently the current business encompasses food business on human nutrition and animal-related nutritional products. The group has 7 companies, and APC is one of the largest companies in the group. APC was formed in 1981 with a global headquarters in Iowa. We are currently the world's largest manufacturer of spray-dried plasma functional proteins. Our global production facilities and our network of sales operations to cater to the livestock and agro business is global operation. The success of the company has been, our cornerstone has been our commitment to research and innovation, and also our collaboration with some of the well-known universities around the world. So we have 2 R&D facilities, one in Iowa and another is in Spain in Europe. These are the products we focus on. We have plasma and we have the red cells or hemoglobin. In plasma, our brand name is AP920. We did a rebranding exercise this year. Now the new name is going to be AP920 or AP820. The hemoglobin or the red cell, it used to be known as AP301, which will be rebranded as 45301 going forward. We have plasma and as well as red cell both in the powder form as well as in the granulated form. If you look at the product application, our biggest business still continues to be in the swine business to cater to the early nursery programs and transition periods to improve the immunity of the piglets. But an increasing area of emphasis, and we see a growth, is in the broiler sector now, in early chick nutrition. The other segment we have been catering to is into the aquaculture markets in Southeast Asia. We supply the red cell or the hemoglobin as a good highly digestible source of protein. We have a big footprint in the pet food sector, both in the wet and dry pet food market. And in the North American market, we also sell into the calf milk replacers. And we also have the biostimulants, which goes into the agronomical and horticulture crops. So in the year 2008, the American Society of Animal Science did a survey among the top nutritionists in the world to identify which are the top 10 discoveries in the past 100 years in swine nutrition. And in that, the plasma in swine diet was ranked as a number 6th rank. So it says a lot about the product. APC is a founding member of the North American Spray-Dried Blood and Plasma Producers Association, a working group within the American Feed Industry Association. And we have been also granted about 20 patents in the US and in Europe related to the collecting, in processing and feeding of blood and plasma proteins. All these have resulted in a lot of scientific publications. We have published over 500 of peer-reviewed papers and journals and articles related to the mode of action, safety, and efficacy of plasma proteins across different species. One of the questions we are always asked is, how is plasma made and is it safe? So one of the things we would like to emphasize is on the safety, on the biosafety of plasma. We follow the WHO guidelines similar to for the production of human transfusible plasma. And we have a complete traceability. We use blockchain technology. If you look at the lot number of a product, we can trace back where the product is coming from, and we have complete mapping of the safety of the product. We have global presence, and if you look at the production facilities we have around the world, in North America, we are present in both in US as in Canada. We have 7 production facilities. And the Denison plant in Iowa is the world's largest plant for the production of plasma. In Europe, we have 5 production facilities in Northern Ireland, in England, in Spain, and in Poland. In Latin America, we have production facilities in Brazil as well as in Argentina. In all these plants, we produce pure porcine or pure bovine product. The product which comes into Asian market is predominantly from North American market, either from US or from Canada, and also from Spain we bring in. We bring in a lot of the hemoglobin, which is a red cell, from Latin America also. In Asia Pacific, we have an office in Tokyo, in Japan, but most of our business in Asia Pacific is through our long-term partners and distributors. So in this year, we completed 25 years of our association with the Asian market. And we would like to thank all our customers and distributors who have been part with us in this journey. If you need any further information about our products or where the products are available, we would be happy to share with you the details. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for Mr. Ramesh on introduction of APC. The real production is really comes from USA. So if you are interested to know more about the products, he already gave the contact number in the earlier slide. However, I can put again in the chat box, but maybe Mr. Ramesh can put his contact number. So come to the technical session now. Are you ready? So we are going to have Dr. Megan Edwards. She is the Australian animal nutrition consultant based in Ho Chi Minh City. It is very new to me. Hi, Dr. Megan, are you ready? And Dr. Megan, she is providing feed formulation, technical support, research advice, as well as joining seminar and training workshop throughout Asia with her experience today. And she really based in the city of pig. There is a lot of pig production happening in Vietnam. So I would like to invite Dr. Megan to start on her presentation topic of spray-dried plasma as a tool to enhance immune development and gut health in young pigs. Please, Doctor.
Thank you very much, and thank you to APC for inviting me here today. Okay, so today I'm going to share with you some of my experience with using plasma and to look at how we can use it to help the gut health in young pigs. So we know that gut health is an issue, particularly in newly weaned pigs, but we don't always spend the time to evaluate what that means to us in terms of cost. So we know from some research that was done almost 30 years ago that pigs, if they're fed on fresh cow's milk, can grow at over 500 grams a day. So this is a 28-day-old pig. So we know that there's lots of potential for growth that we haven't yet achieved. We also know that we have a responsibility within the agricultural sector to produce lean, high quality, nutritious protein using the minimal amount of resources. So efficiency is also important. And if we don't have good gut health, we won't achieve optimal efficiency. We also should put a value on the influence that plasma can have on things like mortality and morbidity. And also some of the investments we make in pigs, like vaccines, for example, they cost money. So we need to ensure that we have optimal response from these investments. And again, this comes back to the health and particularly the gut health of the pig at the time of vaccination. So in the newly weaned pigs, there are a number of challenges, and this is partly related to the fact that the newly weaned pig is immature in terms of its digestive system, but also in terms of its immune system. We also have this challenge that the weaning process is stressful, and this causes a reduction in feed intake, and that alone causes the majority of the damage to the gastrointestinal tract. And so we have to find ways to minimize these negative effects. And one of the most common visual signs that piglets are experiencing stress around weaning is the presence of diarrhea. And we know that diarrhea occurs when we have an imbalance in the microflora within the gut. And this is often as a result of undigested crude protein entering the large intestine. We've traditionally had access to tools like zinc oxide, but for many of us, this now means that we have to look for alternatives. So potentiated zinc and spray-dried plasma are another two very useful tools that we can use to minimize inflammation in these newly weaned animals. So protein might be viewed as a double-edged sword. Protein is an essential dietary component for lean tissue growth and also for immunity. However, excess undigested protein that ends up in the large intestine is the main cause of diarrhea and inflammation. So it is our job as commercial nutritionists to make sure that we provide just enough protein, no deficiencies, and no excess. So when we talk about protein, it's very important that we focus on undigested crude protein, not on crude protein, and that we focus on the digestibility of the proteins that we're using in relation to the digestive capacity of the pig that we're feeding. It's very important to remember that sow's milk has a crude protein of 26% on a dry matter basis. So it is not that piglets cannot digest high levels of crude protein. It's just that piglets struggle to digest plant-based proteins when their digestive system remains immature. So when we formulate young piglet diets, there is a trend to reduce the level of crude protein, and this is with the objective of reducing the amount of undigested protein. When we do that, there is increased pressure in the formulations, and this forces the software to pick higher biological value proteins, and plasma is an excellent example of that. And it also means that we must use more synthetic amino acids. And so it's important that we have access to those synthetic amino acids. It's also important to acknowledge that you may need to make some small compromise. And in my personal opinion, it's important that we keep the ideal amino acid profile as it's intended to be to support both growth and immunity, but you may need to make a small compromise to the energy in this first diet for newly weaned pigs. Here is one example where the crude protein was lowered and only the first 4 essential amino acids were considered. And you can see that as they went from 21 down to 17% crude protein, there was a significant reduction in both the growth performance and the immunity of those pigs. However, if those diets were reformulated to include the branch chain amino acids, so that means isoleucine, leucine, and valine, you can see that the majority of that growth could be recaptured, as well as the immunity. So the reason I show you this is not only because crude protein influences growth, but also because crude protein has a big influence on immunity. So our job as nutritionists is to create the optimum balance, and there's many components that make up balance within the diet, but today I'm just going to touch briefly on the balance between fiber and protein, because I think there is a good synergy between these two. So we know that beneficial microflora have a preference to ferment slowly fermentable insoluble fiber, and this creates positive metabolites in terms of short-chain fatty acids for energy, etc. If we have pathogenic bacteria in the intestine, they have a preference to ferment undigested protein, and this creates negative metabolites. So we have the ability as nutritionists to manipulate the amount of undigested crude protein and also the amount of slowly fermentable insoluble fiber. So just to illustrate the concept, fiber is like red wine. Too much can be not a good thing, but we're trying to look for the optimal dose. So here in this particular study, it was using a corn soy-based diet and then adding wheat bran to that diet as the NDF source. And as they increased the NDF from 8.5 up to 12.5, there was a nice improvement in the feed intake and growth performance and feed efficiency of those pigs. But when they went beyond 12.5, they saw a negative consequence in the growth performance. In the table here, the last line in the top table is AODT, and this is the measure of diarrhea index in this study. And as you can see, there is a negative linear relationship between fiber and diarrhea. So the more fiber we add, the less diarrhea the piglets experience. So we have to decide as commercial nutritionists which of those two options is the best. So if you're an integrator, you might pick a slightly lower level of fiber and optimize growth. But if you're a commercial feed mill with a brand to protect, then you may go for a slightly higher level of fiber to avoid diarrhea. It's also important to understand that fiber is important for the development, the physiological development of the gastrointestinal tract. So as we increase fiber, we increase the capacity of the stomach, and we also increase the capacity of the large intestine. So I'm now going to talk a little bit about plasma. It is a very rich source of protein and a highly digestible source. It has a very good umami profile, and it's important to remember that the first preference piglets have is for umami flavored ingredients. It's also a rich source of bioactive proteins. There are a huge number of publications that have been done over the last 30 years that demonstrate lots of functional health benefits that come from plasma, but it includes things like influencing immune activation, maintaining the physical barrier of the gastrointestinal tract, reducing inflammation, promoting appetite, and modulating microflora. On the left, you can see some data that was done. It's a meta-analysis over time that looked at the influence of plasma. And this study shows that plasma has a positive effect on average daily gain and average daily feed intake in pigs, whether they are weaned at a relatively young age of 18 to 24 days or at a slightly older age of 24 to 32 days. And it's interesting there to see that the feed conversion efficiency is roughly 1:1. On the right side, it's another study that was done in Canada, and it's looking at how we use plasma and how it can influence light, medium, and heavy pigs. And what the study showed is that plasma was able to reduce the proportion of light pigs by the exit of the nursery and increase the proportion of both medium and heavy pigs. This study was done using bovine plasma. So if you're concerned about feeding porcine to porcine, there is very good evidence to suggest that bovine plasma is nearly as good. The interesting thing about this study also is that in the control diet, they decided to add additives almost to the value of plasma. So it had an amazing number of additives in there, but even with all that extra investment, the plasma protein still returned better performance. Some very new publications are now showing that one of the main drivers for the positive influence of plasma on the pig is related to its ability to shift the microflora, and it shifts it towards what they describe as a probiotic profile. So we can see that there's a decrease in the pathogenic bacteria, and we see a nice increase in the cellulose degrading and butyrate producing bacteria, and particularly a nice increase in the lactobacillus species. Some of these lactobacillus species also have functional abilities. So for example, there are some that are able to upregulate the expression of toll-like receptors, and these are known to regulate inflammation and also the cascade of cytokines. And another group of lactobacillus species is known to upregulate genes that are associated with barrier function. So we can shift the microflora and also have this nice positive response with the immunity and the physical barrier of the gut. Again, another very recently published study that shows nice improvement in weight gain when plasma was offered, but it also shows a nice improvement in the physical structure of the gut. We see this nice upregulation of the tight junction proteins, and we also see a nice improvement in villus height. This study had, it was a 2x2 factorial, so there also was with and without antibiotics. And you can see here that in the absence of antibiotics, plasma has a even more pronounced benefit. Another recently published study that confirms a similar finding. So here we're looking at gene expression. So once again, we see a positive influence of plasma on the gene expression of the tight junction proteins in both the jejunum and the ileum. There's also upregulation of the mucin-2 gene, which is responsible for globulate cell function and mucin secretion for gut protection. We also see an upregulation for toll-like receptor 2, which is responsible for the recognition of pathogens. And we have upregulation of TFF3 gene, which is responsible for healing after a challenge. This study looked at intestinal markers during the suckling period, and what they found is, during the post-weaning period, and what they found is that the gut of the pigs offered plasma was less permeable at day 14, and that at day 28 there was less inflammatory cytokines in the serum of the pigs. The other magic about plasma is you pay now and you get payback later. So what we can see in this study that was done in Spain is they offered plasma for 2 weeks after weaning at 6%. They then followed those pigs for the life of the pigs. Again, it was a 2x2 factorial design, so it considered plasma and it also considered vaccination. So there were a group of pigs that received normal commercial vaccinations, and there were a group that received saline treatments, placebos. And you can see here that regardless of whether the pigs received vaccinations or not, the plasma had a profound effect on reducing the whole of life mortality. And it also had a nice positive response to enhancing the live weight of the pigs at slaughter. Vaccination did enhance the live weight of pigs at slaughter, but plasma was able to add additional value on top of that. So when we purchase additives or functional feed ingredients, we have to evaluate what they mean to us. And so I've done some calculations here based on the data I've just shown you in the previous slide. And it's looking at the return on investment in the Asian market today. So as you know, the pork price is very good in most of the markets we are currently working in. And there is a huge shortage of piglets. So piglets are very valuable at the moment. So in China or Vietnam, I've grouped them together because the Vietnam profit is only slightly lower than the Chinese profit at the minute. You can see that if you were able to get the same level of reduction in mortality, it would be worth a 21-to-1 return on investment. If you're in Indonesia at the moment, where the price is also finally rising, it's a more normal return on investment, but it's still very positive at 4.2-to-1. However, the level of mortality that was seen in the Spanish study is relatively high. So in the table at the bottom, I've also made some calculations on a more predictable scale. And you can see there that if in China, if you just saved 1% mortality, so 1 pig in every 100, you would have an ROI of 3.14. And that's still very economically sound. And in Indonesia, you would need to save around 4.5% mortality to have a good economical investment. So in most of the Asian markets at the minute, there is very good financial reason to consider the use of plasma. So the trick to using plasma is to use it right. You do need to have enough plasma to see a positive effect. And in general, you need to have at least 4% plasma in the first diet if you would like to capture the benefits of increased feed intake. It's also really important that you consider a step-down program. So if you're going to offer 4% in the first diet, I would suggest you offer 2% in the second. And that's simply because when we remove plasma, there's also a slight growth check. So we want to minimize the severity of that growth check. Also important to consider the weaning age and weaning age and weight. So if you're weaning pigs closer to 21 days or 6 kilos, you might consider a higher level of plasma. And if you're weaning pigs at 28 days or more than 8 kilos, you might consider a slightly lower level of plasma. So the plasma response is variable, and it's important that you accept that and you adapt the program to your situation. So as I just mentioned, weaning age has an influence, but also application period. So if you're taking a more American approach and you have 4-phase nursery diets, I would suggest you include plasma in the first 3 phases. Whereas if you have a 3-phase nursery program, I suggest you include plasma in the first 2 diets. It's also important to remember that, like antibiotics, plasma works best when sanitation and health are suboptimal. So if you have a very high health farm with brand new facilities, you may not see the same improvement from plasma as another farmer. Medication can also have an influence. In my personal experience, some medications unfortunately dampen the increase in feed intake when we offer them in combination. And there's some research out of Europe that suggests that the particular plant protein or animal protein that you remove from the diet to put the plasma in may influence the size or the magnitude of the response as well. So if you're removing soybean meal, you can expect a very, very good response from plasma. But if you're removing something like potato protein or high quality milk protein, the response may be slightly lower. So here is an example of a typical Asian piglet diet, and it's important that if you would like plasma to work well, that you put it into a good diet. Plasma is no excuse for a poor base diet. It's important that you have enough cooked cereals. You need to have a reasonable level of lactose. You need to be using other high biological value proteins. So this is things like soy protein concentrate or yeast extract or high quality fish meal. And you need to make sure that your diet has a low acid binding capacity, using generous amounts of free organic acids and optimizing the application of your phytase. So again, the creep feed should be offered during the suckling period and then followed on for the first 7 to 10 days after weaning. And this is to allow the pig to transition smoothly through the stress of weaning. So lots of research has been done with plasma, and it is proven to offer a range of long-term benefits. It's proven to boost feed intake in young pigs. It's proven to provide passive immunity. It's proven to be a tool to stabilize the hindgut. It is a sustainable option and will allow us to transition away from zinc oxide successfully. And it will also allow us to reduce our reliance on preventative antibiotics as we move forward as an industry. It will enhance vaccine response of our pigs, and most importantly, it will enhance the welfare of our pigs. So in conclusion, plasma protein is a very useful tool that we can use to assist the immature piglets we are weaning through the challenges and stress associated with weaning and deliver whole of life benefits. We can manage the health and immunity of modern pigs, and this is essential if we must optimize efficiency. Plasma is very safe It is a natural tool, and we can use it to promote the health, performance, and welfare of our pigs. And we have to appreciate the cost of poor gut health when we evaluate the value of plasma. Thank you very much.
All right, Dr. Megan, thank you very much for very detailed information on the spray dry plasma of APC. So I think we have about more than 10 questions already here in the session, but I will put all the questions together to answer at the end. All right. So now we are going to the next topic that Dr. Yanbin Shen, he will speak about the importance of immunity and gut health for ASF prevention and control, and dietary strategies improving immunity and gut health of pig. So we have Dr. Yanbin Shen here. There are a lot of questions already asked on the question related to what you are going to speak now. So I invite all the audience to stay focused in his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose, Mrs. Rose, for the introduction. I really appreciate all the audience today for tuning in today for our discussion. I'm going to spend a little bit of time to talk about the African swine fever virus because in this region in Southeast Asia, in all the countries, we're facing this threat in one way, form, or another. So I would like to spend just a little bit of time to discuss, the importance of gut health and the immunities on African swine fever prevention and control. So first of all, you have to know your enemies in order to fight against it. You really have to understand the physiological or biological features of African swine fever so that you can develop appropriate control measures. So for African swine fever virus is actually a very unique virus, out there. You have to understand the features so that you can develop control measures. I would like to share just with you a few of the features of African swine fever virus, which has implications on importance of gut health and immunities. One of the features for African swine fever is it's only infect one type of cells in the pigs called monocyte, which are essentially macrophage cells or dendritic cells by so-called endocytosis. What does that mean? It means it's only going to affect those two type of cells in pigs. It does not infect other type of cells like epithelial cells in the gut or in the lung or in skins, and that's important. I will share with you, the implications of gut health in this regard in a few slides later. And also another feature for African swine fever viruses is once pig get infected by this virus, it cannot produce neutralizing antibodies. The antibodies pig produce cannot neutralize this virus, and therefore you have a really high mortality rate once you're infected with this virus. But not all pig will die in the field, especially in Southeast Asian area or China, where we have seen this virus, in the field. It's you will have 5% to 15% pig will survive. So that's indicating, the immunity can be stimulated to fight against this virus. And the main immunity needed for fighting this virus is so-called cytotoxic CD8 T cell cellular response. You just have to remember this type of response is needed to fight against this particular virus. Once you can stimulate the pig to produce this response, it will help to increase the survivability of pig, and also reduce the transmission rate for African swine fever viruses. Some of the vaccines that are in development that are showing a very promising result, those vaccines are also trying to stimulate this type of immune response. So those are the key features of African swine fever virus, and you have to really understand that. Now we have understand it. What the question is, what does gut health has anything to do with African swine fever virus infections? I think that this slide here really shows everything we need to know, and I will spend a little bit of time to explain this in details. Okay, on this slide, on the left side, you have a very normal gut. On the top, you have gut lumen. In the lumen, you have feed. Also, you have some other, some pathogens or, probiotic bacteria. Also, you potentially have some viruses. For example, this small dot, we can think about it as, African swine fever viruses. It's much smaller than bacteria. Then you have this epithelial barrier layers, and basically it's a layer that consists of all the epithelial cells. They line very closely to each other, form a barrier to prevent the pathogens to get into a pig's body. And below the epithelial layers, you have the immune cells can potentially resonate in this portion of the gut. So in a normal condition, as I explained before, African swine fever virus, they will not infect epithelial cells. So if you have some African swine fever virus in the feed or in the lumens, and you have a very good gut health and epithelial layers you're really tight, and this viruses will not infect the pigs. They can pass through the gut lumen, and the pig will probably be okay. However, if you have some damages, especially the damage at the gut levels, and you have inflammation and in the gut levels, that will increase the risk of virus infection. By the virus can penetrate into the damaged tissues, and on the other hand, because you have inflammation in this site, the tissues actually going to recruit the immune cells to the site to help to fight against the pathogens. One type of the immune cell going to be recruited is macrophage cells. So in a sense, number one, you increase the penetration of African swine fever virus into the damaged tissue. On the other hand, you actually recruited more host cells or target cells for African swine fever once you have a damaged gut. So in those two ways, you actually going to dramatically increase the risk of African swine fever infection. So the key point here is really you need to maintain a good gut health to help you to fight against the virus infection, especially African swine fever virus infection. That makes sense, right? And this study published in 2015 by German scientist Sandra Blum really demonstrated that point very, very well. In her study, basically what she was looking at is how much African swine fever viruses do we need to infect a pig? In her study, she showed if we gave oronozole about 100 units of live African swine fever virus, it did not infect healthy pigs. However, when she gave that virus at the lower dose, at the 10 unit, it did infect an immune-compromised runt pigs. And the first pig got infected, she reported, has had some gastrointestinal infection before. So the authors think the poor gut health actually really contributed to this low dose infection, low dose African swine fever infection in pigs. So, in conclusion, the author really demonstrated the herd health, mucosa integrity, or in other words, gut health, and appropriate immune response are all keys for controlling African swine fever spread in the herd. When we look at the virus infections, the strategy, how we limited the virus infection on farm, I think right now on farm, especially in Southeast Asia, we are all doing all we can and try to minimize the exposure and try to cut down the transmission route, which are, very good. And we should do 200% of our effort trying to do that, which include the biosecurity management, pig flow, or testing or monitoring. We need to do whatever we can do to minimize the exposure. That's for sure. But with the data I just showed you, I think we think there's another factor in the equation, which is the baseline herd health and immunity, which include the gut health as well. So if the herd has a very good gut health and a very efficient immune response, we believe that can reduce the risk of African swine fever infections. Oh, now I'm a nutritionist and by training, so my first question to myself is, can we do something in the diet can actually help with this gut health and immunity? I think the answer is very clear because functional proteins really has a track record of improving gut health and directly can affect the immune system. And Dr. Megan shared some of the data already. I'm going to share a little bit, a mode of action type of data also. What do I mean by functional proteins? I'm just using, the functional proteins in plasma as an example. Proteins, when nutritionists talk about protein, crude protein, or amino acid, we often talk about the nutritional value, which basically means the protein are being digested into amino acid, providing, amino acid to pigs for lean tissue deposition. However, there are some proteins that do have some biologic activities. For example, in plasma protein, it contains albumin, immunoglobulin G or M and A, transferrin, peptide, growth factor, etc. And those proteins, when they bind receptors on the tissues, they can actually affect the physiological, make physiological changes in pigs. And by doing that, it can enhance the health and the survival of pigs. The reason why we think those plasma protein works is because it can help animal to maintain an efficient immune response, and by improving gut health, it supports animal health. This slide shows you, what we think plasma can help to reduce the risk of virus infection, really through a better gut health. Because of the time today, I will not be able to show you all the details, all our data on improving gut health, but in short, we have a lot of data showing plasma proteins increases tight junctions of those epithelial cells, improve the barrier functions, and reduce inflammations. And very uniquely, actually, plasma protein can also help to repair the damaged epithelial layers. So really pulling, the damaged tissues to the left to a normal stage. And that's a very unique feature of plasma proteins. And the reason why we have that is because there's some, growth factors in the plasma proteins can help to repair that damaged epithelial layers. And that's probably only, the only one additives I've seen in the market can do those kind of repair. By doing that, we think plasma reduce the risk of virus infections. That's on gut health. The functional proteins also have impact directly on the immunities. What do I mean by directly impacting immunities? It's really because of the nature of the physiological nature of pigs and piglet. Pigs and piglet, they can actually receive those immunity through so-called passive immune transfer. And so basically the dietary immunity or immune factors can be transferred into the pigs so that it actually directly impacting immunities. There are two ways of passive immune transfer in pigs. One way is called the non-selective pentocytosis. This really happens before gut closure. So really, after birth, within the first 3 days, you see this is a main driver for this immune transfer. What it does is actively transferring the colostrum IgGs into the newborn pig circulations. And those maternal antibodies actually represent a very important part of circulating IgGs for those piglets. And if you have enough IgGs from the cells being transferred into baby pigs, it can indeed improve the survivability of those piglets. The other way is of immune transfer is called receptor mediated transfer. And this receptor over here is called FcRAA receptor. And this type of passive immune transfer happens after gut closure. Those receptors mainly are expressed in the epithelial cells of duodenum and jejunum. Here on the right side, it's a slide shows how it works. Essentially, in a diet, if you have contains IgGs, those IgGs gonna bind with this FcRNA receptor in the lumen when the pH is acidic, and then this whole thing gonna be internalized into the cells, epithelial cells, and being transferred into this blood side of the epithelial cells. In the blood side, in the blood, because the pH is more is higher, it's more alkaline, and this FcR receptor gonna release this IgG in the pig bloodstream. So by doing that, it's basically transporting those IgGs directly across the gut epithelial cells, and this is after the gut closure in the piglet in a weaning pig. And this is very interesting. And also, this FcR receptor has been reported it can express in even the adult pigs. So suggesting that this passive immune transfer can also happen probably in cells. And that's probably the reason why we see a really good response in cells as well, because this immune properties can maintain in the adult pig as well. This is a study published in 2004 in the Journal of Immunology. This is a really, what I call slam dunk, trial shows dietary regulations through diet on immunity through this passive immune transfer. What they did in this trial is they used a three-week-old piglet. This is way beyond the gut closure, and then they gave those pigs bovine IgGs daily for 7 days. And after feeding those bovine IgG, within 24 hours, they quickly observed those bovine IgG in pigs' bloodstream. And those Ig uptake is dose dependent. And this is really showing that if you're providing some immune factors in the diet, it can be passively transferred into the pigs, baby pig, weaning pigs, bloodstream pretty efficiently. What's interesting for us also is, they're using bovine IgGs, and this is on pigs. Why does this happen? And the author explained because the porcine receptors has very high affinities to bovine IgGs. The affinity for other species are relatively lower compared to bovine. So this is, again, demonstrating that diet can indeed impact immunities and through this passive immune transfer. Of course, functional proteins regulation on immunities, it's, not only limited to this passive immune transfer of IgGs. IgG is very important. IgG can help to neutralizing the pathogens and can facilitate an efficient immune response. IgG is very important, but there are other factors in functional proteins can also regulate immunities. For example, some other bioactive proteins like interferons or other cytokines, interferon gamma or alphas. Those cytokines, for example, interferon gamma it's known have this antiviral, natural antiviral activities. There are research being published. The interferon gammas can inhibit African swine fever virus replications in the host cells by about 1,000 times. So it's very, very potent, peptide or proteins. And those proteins can also facilitate the CD8 T cell response. If you remember the first slide I shared, the CD8 T cell response are very critical to develop immunities against African swine fever virus. Also, there are lactoferrins or transferferrins, as a functional proteins can inhibit the growth of bacterials as well. There are other growth factors. Functional proteins can benefit the growth or development of gut as well. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but I do want to show you just this quickly. This the vaccine response that Dr. Megan briefly said earlier. We did a trial a few years ago in Brazil. We fed plasma and not plasma pigs, and then we vaccinated the pig with PCV2 vaccine. We see by feeding plasma, it did increase the antibody titers to PCV2 pig, the viruses. So it did indeed, this is another example suggesting diet, the functional proteins can indeed impact immunities of piglet or pigs. Because of that, we believe under those challenged conditions, we see those benefit with plasma. Really, it's because it's regulating the immune system and helping the pig to handle, or other species to handle disease better. In all those challenge studies, we always see using functional proteins like plasma, improve diarrhea score, improve average daily gain, improve survivability, and improve feed efficiency as well. Not only in those university type of trials, we saw that benefit. We also see that from commercial nurseries using the epidemiological studies as well. And this is a publication published in 2006, where Canadian veterinarians looked at the commercial nurseries in Canada, trying to figure out what are the things can impact herd health and survival of nursery pigs. What he basically concluded is biosecurity, disease status on farm management, and more importantly, nursery nutrition, all significantly impacted herd health and survival. And what he pointed out specifically is by including plasma in the nursery diet can benefit herd health and reduce mortality. Here on the right side, you can see the data point. Here, what he used it's a statistical method or result called odds ratio. Basically, what that means is by doing one thing or not doing one thing, if your odds ratio is 1, that means that doing that things or having that factors does not impact your final result on survivability. But if you have a higher odds ratio, that means you have a higher probability to achieve better outcome, which is better survivability. As you can see, as a reference, we all know higher weaning weight will give you a better nursery survivability. The odds ratio for that is about 2. But including plasma in the nursery phase 1 diet, the odds ratio is about 14. In the second phase, it's about 4. So including inclusion of plasma in the first 2 phases of nursery diet significantly increased the piglet survival. That's for sure. In some sense, I think Southeast Asian countries are facing similar situations as the European Union. They are also facing African swine fever virus, and also in that region, antibiotic is not allowed. They're starting to removing zinc oxide as well. So this is a publication published in May of this year from SFR group. It's a very famous feed group in Netherlands, where they talked about using plasma protein or functional proteins in those type of situations, where basically they concluded plasma proteins it's count as a milk protein, and the effect of plasma protein are much more pronounced on farms with low performance or suboptimal conditions. And also, they think a higher plasma protein inclusion might be justified in a diet without antibiotic or without higher zinc oxide, which is what we are facing in our region as well. We also, APC as a supplier of plasma protein, we also have a lot of research data, but due to time, I will not show you everything. I will just show you a few study we did recently. This is a study we did in 2017 by Dr. Joe Crenshaw, where he looked at the plasma effect, PERS positive nursery bar. In this study, we used about 960 pigs into two diet, essentially. One is the alternative diet, which contain about 10 additives. And the cost of those alternative diet is actually more expensive than the plasma diet because of 10 additives. The plasma diet is very simple. We had 5% plasma in phase 1 for 14 days and 2.5% for 7 days. And this is the final result. As you can see at end of nursery, plasma increased body weight compared to the alternative feed program. More importantly, it reduced mortality by about 40%. This is another study recently published this year at the Midwest meeting this year. This is an independent study by PIC. They did this in Brazil. I thought that the result is very interesting, so that's why I want to share with you. In this study, basically, they looked at a simple diet contains about 2.5% bovine plasma versus a more complex diet had about 5% bovine plasma. And this result on this slide is looking at the removal and mortality. As you can see, by having a more complex diet, it reduced the mortality and removal in the medium and heavy weight pigs. Again, it's feeding back to our thought. It does improve the herd health. I just want to spend really quick to show you we have bovine plasma or porcine plasma available globally, and in those regions who are frequently using both bovine plasma or porcine plasma in their starter diet, we see a very similar response between bovine and porcine. One of the reasons probably you see a similar response is because, as I mentioned earlier, the receptors for bovine IgG probably are very similar to porcine receptor. Okay, in summary, we think gut health and immunity plays a very key role in African swine fever virus prevention and control. And facing those virus threat, dietary interventions that can improve gut health immunity and could reduce the risk of infections. We think functional proteins in plasma, because it has a track record improving gut health and immunities, therefore should be considered as preventative measures. That will be my last slides. Thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you, Dr. Yanbin. So I apologize that I forget to introduce about Dr. Yanbin. Can I brief a bit? He is the Global Technical Service Director at APC, and the thing is his past experience also working in the swine farm in USA and also working with Cargill USA at headquarters. So you are now from USA, right, Doctor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
late night for
introduction. Yes.
All right.
No problem.
So, okay, we come to the question answer later on. So, to our last speaker of today webinar, I think Dr. Joe Crenshaw is already ready to present to you on the topic of how much ASF virus is needed in feed to infect pigs? That is the answer that he's going to present in his presentation. May I brief a bit about Dr. Joe Crenshaw? He is the Senior Director of Technical Service for APC. He provides technical service and advice for customer and conduct product development and application research. His career spans 35 years already in the swine industry, and from teaching to research to private consulting in animal nutrition and feed business in Asia. So I give the stage to Dr. Joe, please.
Thank you. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes, I can see. Doctor, can you do the full slide?
Okay. All right. There we go. There we go. Thank you. Well, welcome everyone, and appreciate the ability to do a webinar. Really wish I was in Asia and visiting everyone, and I certainly miss being there. But today I wanted to share with you some new research that we've been involved with at Crenshaw in Spain. Crenshaw is a federal research lab in Spain that is approved to do African swine fever virus research. And so we had interest in understanding more about how African swine fever virus could be potentially transmitted by feed to infect pigs, and understanding, the potential infection route and how, if we could demonstrate that, then what would we need to do from our processing standards to assure that we're effectively eliminating the virus in our product. So APC is a global leader in research, particularly related to spray-dried plasma products. We probably publish more research. I think I've actually published more papers at APC than I did as a professor in my younger days. So, and we are very dedicated to the production and safety of producing safe and effective nutritional products that improve animal health, and we heavily invest in biosafety related research to assure our products are safe. Now, again, with the growing spread of African swine fever, there's been a lot of questions about the safety of porcine derived feed ingredients or feed itself, if they represent a risk for transmitting the virus through feed. And as you dig through the literature, there's really not a lot of data related to the transmission potential of ASF through feed. However, we do know ASF can be inactivated by thermal and chemical processing conditions. There's some data out there showing certain temperatures and are effective in inactivating the virus, as well as certain sanitizing agents or chemicals as well. And even some of your feed additives, sanitation agents are being shown to be effective in inactivating the virus. So there is one paper published last year that reported that 10,000 African swine fever virus particles were needed in feed to infect at least one pig. And then the authors did a computer model simulation or prediction model indicating that 10 feedings at this dose would infect all the pigs. However, this is one study, and we felt more research was needed to better understand how much virus is needed in feed to cause pigs to get infected, and to validate or try to understand this better. And so we did 2 studies with Crenshaw in Spain. And in study 1, we fed 20,000 virus particles, African swine fever virus particles, daily for 14 days, and it did not infect the pigs. We repeated the study. Study 2, we used 100,000 African swine fever virus particles fed daily for 14 days and didn't infect pigs. We simply could not show in these studies that we could infect pigs with African swine fever in the feed when provided for 14 consecutive days. And this paper is now published in PLOS One. It's available online, open access paper, and you'll see this throughout the presentation, but you can easily download the paper if you're interested in looking at more detail. So I'll try to give you kind of a brief overview of this study and a little bit more of what happened in the study. So our objective was of the study, it was designed to determine if African swine fever contaminated unprocessed liquid porcine plasma added to feed for 14 consecutive days would cause infection. And going into this study, we were expecting, that probably we could infect the pigs. And we were surprised with the results. So I want to go into a little more detail of what happened in the study. To prepare the inoculum and putting the inoculum on the feed, we obtained serum from an experimentally infected ASF infected pig. Then we took that serum from that infected pig and added it into the commercial unprocessed liquid porcine plasma that we had collected from a slaughter plant in Spain. Very typical of what we would use to process into spray-dried plasma. And this serum, did not contain any or the unprocessed liquid porcine plasma did not contain any ASF or antibodies or anything like that in it related to ASF. And then we took, added the virus to that unprocessed liquid porcine plasma, and then we added that then on top of the feed and stored it overnight in refrigerated conditions, and then fed it the next morning to pigs. And we did this for 14 consecutive days at a given dose. So the timeline of study 1, we brought in healthy pigs, 10 positive control pigs and 10 negative control pigs, kept in a separate facility. And the positive control group, we acclimated them to the facility for 5 days, and then for 14 consecutive days, we fed them 20,000 virus particles in the feed daily. And then we observed the pigs for an additional 5 or 6 days because as we were feeding them, we saw no signs of fever or any clinical symptoms. And so the results of the feeding study, again, each pig received 20,000 virus particles daily for 14 days. And then during the observation feed, they didn't receive any virus, but the pigs remained healthy through day 19 of the study. And we had taken blood samples and temperatures of the pigs and just saw no elevation of temperature or any presence of ASF genome in the blood of the pigs. So we asked the question, well, maybe the liquid plasma inoculum just wasn't effective. And so since we had the pigs there in the facility, let's answer this question. Can we cause these pigs to get infected if we give the inoculum that we used in the feed study, either by an intramuscular injection or intragastric gavage? And so we injected the pigs with 20,000, a single dose of 20,000 virus particles, or 50,000 particles in the or 100,000 particles in the intragastric gavage. And so this is the results after the feeding study. They again had remained all negative, and we give a single injection intramuscular, and all 4 of those pigs became infected by day 23 and were developed real high fever. In the oral gavage, those pigs also became infected just a few days later with the virus. This was confirmed in both tissue and blood samples. And so in summary, in study 1, 14 consecutive days of feeding 20,000 virus particles daily did not result in ASF infection. The pigs remained free during the observation period, but when we give that inoculum by injection or oral gavage directly into the stomach, we could cause the pigs to get infected. So we did a second study. And this time in the second study, we just used a positive control group of 10 pigs. And this time we fed them 100,000 virus particles in the feed daily for 14 days, and then observed them for another 9 days. And in this study, again, feeding all 10 pigs 100,000 particles daily for 14 days resulted in no symptoms, no fever, no positive results in blood. We did have 1 pig die on day 22 of the study due to unrelated reasons, and confirmed the tissue negative for ASF in that pig. So again, study 2, we again wanted to say, all right, we couldn't infect them by feeding. So let's see if we can infect them by a gavage, a single gavage given to some of these pigs. So 6 of those remaining pigs, we did an intragastric gavage with 500,000 particles and observed them for another 8 days. In this study 2, pigs that were gavage, some of the pigs became infected with ASF, and one of the contact pigs became infected as well, demonstrating that the virus could move pig to pig within a pen. These animals were all in the same pen at the time. However, again, feeding the virus on the feed for 14 consecutive days at even up to 100,000 virus particles did not result in ASF infection. And so our conclusions from this study was that pigs are not infected with ASF when consuming feed with a high level of infective virus, up to 100,000 virus particles daily. And that we would conclude feed really represents a very low risk for transmitting ASF. If we compare the Crenshaw studies that we just completed this year to the study published in Emerging Infectious Disease last year in 2019, there are some differences between the studies. They did show infection at 10,000 virus particles, and they used a spleen homogenate from infected pig, put it in RPMI medium, We use serum from an infected pig using commercial collected unprocessed liquid porcine plasma as a medium. And that may be one reason we see different results between these studies. Feed contamination, they did a similar thing. They put the inoculum on the feed, mixed it in the feed, and fed it very soon after mixing. We held it overnight at refrigerated temperature and fed it the next morning. However, those are kind of minor differences, but we don't understand if that could have made a difference in the results or not. Their experimental design was to give a specific virus dose tested in a group of 5 pigs over 7 different time replications. And they would put 1 dose on feed, observe the pigs for 5 days, and then euthanize the pigs. In our studies, we were given a single virus dose in 2 different studies, and we were given a 1 dose daily for 14 consecutive days with additional days of observation, 5 to 9 days of observation. They didn't test any other administration routes. We did. We looked at intramuscular and gavage and confirmed that the inoculum could be infective if given by different administration routes. They used a all plant ingredient feed. We used a commercial feed. However, the feed we were able to show and confirm on in our studies that we could recover the virus on the commercial feed by cell culture. In their study, they didn't report that they did that, to confirm the dose. And so if you kind of conclude from both of these studies, I think the one big take-home message I get from this data is that the repeated exposures of ASF in the feed, like in our case, 14 consecutive days, we did not increase any risk of infection, suggesting that the model predictions did not correlate with our results. The liquid porcine plasma, I think, is probably one of the bigger differences in the studies in that using the liquid porcine plasma as a medium, we do know plasma does contain some inherent non-antibody antiviral factors that have potential to reduce the infectious capacity of ASF. And I think Dr. Shen mentioned a few things that possibly could have impacted that. Certainly some of the interferons are found in plasma. And I think we can still conclude, even from both studies, that feed really itself represents a fairly low risk of transmitting the virus. I think we still need to be prudent to utilize our viral security standards to reduce risk of a farm getting infected. Certainly people movement and truck movement and animal movements are probably the bigger risk factors. To me, from what I've seen so far, there's very little evidence that feed itself is causing widespread cases of ASF. I think most of our experiences from what we've heard in China is that most of the cases are related to people movement, animal movement, and those kind of things. And feed itself is being considered more of a low risk today in that environment. So I think, as Ramesh showed you earlier, I won't spend much time on this, but we do have what we call a multiple hurdle approach for processing plasma. we are collecting blood from only pork plants or only bovine plants. We're spray drying it separately. We're hauling it in our company-owned dedicated tankers. And then in a couple of our plants, we're using a new technology that APC only has, where we actually treat the liquid plasma with UV light, a photopurification process, which we have several studies now published showing it inactivates a wide variety of viruses. The blood is then after UV, the blood is centrifuged, filtered, concentrated, and then spray dried throughout substance. And again, we have several publications, including PED, PERS, circovirus, various important, economically important viruses have shown that spray drying inactivates these viruses as well, including the African swine fever. Both UV and spray drying will inactivate the virus. Our product is then packaged in new bags or totes. Then it is stored for up to 14 days at room temperature to minimize any potential cross-contamination. I have several studies showing that if you intentionally inoculate the dried product with virus, including PED, it becomes inactive within a day even on the dry product. Dry plasma has a very low water activity. Most viruses will not survive for very long on a very dry product like that. And our product is quality controlled, QA tested, QA verified, all the processing conditions have been met before it's released for sale. In Southeast Asia, all our APZ products are government authorized and approved for import into the various countries. Each country's government has come and inspected our plants and approved them for use of plasma in animal feed. We have our multiple hurdle manufacturing process and traceability of our products, to deliver a safe and effective product. For a product coming from the US or Europe, or plants in Spain or Canadian plants that come into Southeast Asia countries, these products are ASF free. The blood is collected in regions where there is no ASF. And this is certified that it does not originate from countries that have ASF. So all this material is available for our customers. And why should you use plasma? Plasma, either bovine or porcine, in our studies we show are both equally effective. Both have a profound impact on health of the animal. As I think Dr. Yanbin has shown, and Dr. Megan have shown, plasma helps improve health, it helps improve survival of the pig, and it has long-term effects, not just short-term effects. And I think one of the easiest things for producers to see is it gets your pigs started. It's just easier to use in a nursery. It's easier to manage pigs. It's on a good, solid plasma feeding program. It improves pig health and survival. As Dr. Yanbin mentioned, we have some data showing it improves sow reproductive performance. We've done a lot of research looking at inflammatory models, disease models, showing that plasma not only improves the efficiency of the immune system at the gut level, but it's also modulating the beneficially modulating the inflammatory response at the respiratory and uterine level in the immune systems as well. So it's a systemic effect, not just a local gut effect. We have also lots of data demonstrating that plasma can be used to help reduce reliance on antibiotics. We have some interesting data coming out of Brazil today that is showing plasma can help reduce reliance on antibiotics even in grow finish pigs. So hopefully sometime we can share more of that information in the future. It is an excellent health management option, particularly if you're looking at antibiotic-free type production systems, or having just simply to reduce reliance on antibiotics because of regulatory changes within your country that are either happening now, already happened, or going to be happening in the next 2 or 3 years. So with that, I'll say thank you and appreciate the opportunity to visit with you, and we'll try to go ahead and answer as many questions as we can.
All right, thank you, Dr. Joe. And please stay on with our question and answer. And may I request the 3 speakers to open your video and microphone as well. So I think the audience already put the question and answer in the Q&A box, and the speaker already answered some of them. We have about 3 minutes only on the Q&A. So I would put in this way, like the question that I have right now that many people is asking, I think would go to Dr. Shen, that what about the amino acid digestibility level of the product from APC? How you gonna answer this to the audience here, because there are few asking on the same question on amino acid level. Yep.
Sure. Blood type of product, including plasma and the red cell, has a really high level of digestibility in the young nursery pigs. Not only nursery pigs, but all the young animals, including chickens, young chicks. In nursery pigs, if you're interested, we can send you the spec sheet to you. But typically, what we would say for plasma, we will see about 95% digestibility for baby pigs. For blood cells, about 98% digestibility.
All right, thank you, doctor. So I think there are a lot of inquiry on the digestible amino acid level. So the next question I would think would go to either Mr. Ramesh or Dr. Joe. The question is, the audience already used the plasma, spray-dried plasma earlier, but from the ASF time, they stopped using, and even the government have the ban to import the products. How you gonna take on with this, and if customer interest, how you ensure that your product is really safe from ASF or even BES from bovine?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the information, I would say that we are currently selling plasma in all the countries in Asia. What the government says is it has to be from non-ASF countries. Whereas in case of China, we had a temporary ban of about few weeks, and then we presented all the data on the safety of plasma, and then they reapproved for the usage of plasma. I think the value of plasma is more now than any time, because the pigs are under immune challenge, so plasma gives, on the contrary, our demand for plasma is growing. I mean, in some of the countries, we are not able to meet the demand. So I think in terms of safety, in terms of efficacy of the product, it is well proven. And, I think Dr. Joe can add more to it.
Yeah, I think part of your question was also related to can we test for ASF? All right. With African swine fever, since it affects global trade, governments are only allowed to do the testing, okay? Government approved labs. And in the US, for example, or in Spain, we do not have African swine fever. So as a ingredient supplier, we can't do the test. We're not allowed to do the test. And so it's a very unique situation. And so I think if our product, where our product is approved by the governments in, say, Vietnam or Thailand or Philippines, Malaysia, it's approved to bring in based on government inspection of our plants, based on USDA certificates indicating the blood is not collected from an ASF region. So that certificate indicates that the product is free of the virus. And we have a traceability system set up that we can trace the movement of the product from our plants to our distribution into various countries. It's an app we actually have that can be, you can scan the barcode on the label and it'll give you all kind of information on the product. So that's the reason we can't just go out and routinely test a product. It's a government regulated thing that we're not able to do that.
All right, thank you, Doctor. I think
just
this
real
make
quick. Pig will not be infected by BSE.
Right.
That's cross species.
Right. And BSE US is recognized as a low risk country in regards to BSE. So our bovine product is collected from only bovine plants. It is, we have not had any what I call meat and bone meal related BSE cases in the US since about 2006 or 7, I believe was the last one. And the World Health Organization recognizes the US as a low risk country for BSE, bovine.
All right, Doctor. Yeah. So thank you very much. And I will come to the last question, probably Dr. Megan and you, but Dr. Megan is like consultant. The question will ask about Dr. Megan. In Asia, the segregated early weaning is about 21 to 24 days. Okay, so how you see the economy of like the financial in using the APC products, because the question is like, is it costly or it is worth to use it in Asia?
It looks expensive by the kilo, but when you look at what you're actually investing per pig, it's generally less than $1 per pig. And at the minute, a piglet is worth several $100s. So if you invest $1 and you improve survivability, you get your money back very, very quickly. There will be times, so for example, if I was an American pig farmer or a Brazilian pig farmer at the minute where they are losing huge amounts of money, it would be very difficult to contemplate the investment. But if the pork prices are positive and And even under normal circumstances, when ASF is absent from the market, if you're still making $50 a pig, there is very good reason to invest in technologies that improve health and welfare. You have to quantify the value, and I've given some examples today, and they're one parameter. And for example, I showed you about improvement in mortality. But if we're getting improvements in mortality, we'll also be getting improvements in growth and feed efficiency. So it's going to pay back more than I explained today. So in Asian conditions, 21, 24-day weaning with $200 or $300 piglets, we can afford to use plasma.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen and all speakers, thank you very much for today's session by APC. For more information that you may require for the presentation of the speaker, you can contact Mr. Ramesh directly, and you can watch this presentation again for the very good, well present from the four speaker in APC website and our Facebook of VIETSTOCK, Livestock Philippines, and Livestock Malaysia. So today, I thanks for everyone to stay in with us for last 1 hour, 40 minutes, and hope to see you all again in our next session. Tomorrow, we will cover about the feed manufacturing's impact on pelleting and nutrition, and also on the implication of low dose of mycotoxin. So let's see us again in tomorrow with the gut health and feed webinar from Informa Markets. Thank you for APC support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for
appreciate your time
working with us.
Thank you.